It's a typical African city, and Gaborone, the thriving metropolis that is the capital of Botswana, annually plays host to the blue chip round of the Absa Off-Road Championship. The Toyota 1000 Desert Race started out as the Total Trans-Kalahari race 29 years ago, and nowadays it's the biggest single sporting event in Botswana. The entire country throws its weight behind the only marathon race on the Absa Off-Road Championship calendar.
There is a fierce rivalry between manufacturers and factory and privateer teams, and behind the facade of last-minute preparations, pressure was starting to build on crews.
I think the pressure's just increased since we've had such a good run down at the Sugar Belt when we saw that we had the potential to win an event. So that's just increased the pressure for us this weekend. But look, I'm actually quite happy about it. The cars are going very, very well. We've done some more testing, and yeah, I think we're actually going to be very competitive.
Now, it's always nice coming out here in Botswana, and they've always put a very good event together. It's a nice area to race in, and yeah, they're all nice people, and we've got very, very good support here in Botswana.
Where Ford factory driver and former South African champion Neil Woolridge is concerned, they're happy memories of the Botswana race.
The biggest one on the calendar is the Toyota 1000 Desert Race, and to win that, as I've been fortunate enough to do before, is sort of the cherry on the top.
A crew with high hopes was the father and son combination of Hichu and Jaap de Bruin.
It's for 2 years in a row now that we've won the Prologue, but as everyone say, the desert's not won on the Prologue. For us, I think the big goal is just to complete the desert. Hopefully we will want to start again in front, or at least in the top 5. But our main goal this year is going to be to try and finish the desert, and hopefully we can do it for Toyota. I mean, Toyota is looking forward for a win, and as well as we did, and I think we've got the vehicle is perfect. We do a lot of development on the vehicle. I think we put a lot of time in also in the prep of the vehicle, and I think this year is going to be the one for us.
After 3 rounds, the Production Vehicle Championship was dominated by Donaldson's Nissan Navara crews. 2 wins gave Duncan Foss and Rolf Pitchford a comfortable lead, with only 2 points separating Ivar Tolfsen and Quinn Evans and Hannes Grobler and Juan Moore. The Class D crew and 2 Class E teams had also found their way into the top 10.
With start positions of utmost importance on off-road races, the pre-event prologues to determine grid positions are always filled with action. The top 10 seeded crews in the production vehicle category draw for start positions and take off at 2-minute intervals. First away in Botswana were Hannes Grobler and Juan Moore, with Hichu and Jaap de Bruin second on the road.
The Castrol Toyota factory crew of Anthony Taylor and Robin Houghton were under pressure to produce good results, and were seen off by members of their technical team. Championship leaders Duncan Foss and Rolf Pitchford were next away, and were followed by the Ford factory pair of Neil Woolridge and Kenny Shorthammer in the new diesel twin-turbo Ford Ranger TDCi.
The Toyota 1000 Desert Race is a uniquely African event, with a placid rural life shattered by the sound of high-powered race engines. With 5 desert race wins under his belt, Hannes Grobler had plenty of experience going for him, and alongside him, Juan Moore is the reigning SA Co-Drivers Championship. The 70-kilometer prologue route was tight and tricky, with the Donaldson Nissan Navara crew finishing in a time of 1 hour, 6 minutes and 12 seconds. The RFS Toyota Hilux pair of Chris Visser and Japie Baardhorst posted the same time as Grobler and Moore, and would start the race proper alongside the Nissan.
A riverbed will always provide youngsters with a little entertainment, and the same was true of Ivar Tolfsen and Quinn Evans, who had a great time in this race. Things happened to turn out a little better for Hichu and Jaap de Bruin in the Michelin Excel Toyota Hilux. They posted the second fastest time, just 14 seconds behind the leaders, with Gary Bertelt and Dani Stassen also going well in the Atlas Copco Toyota Hilux, who finished a half a minute off the pace.
There were running repairs for one local enthusiast, with the prologue also fraught with problems for Anthony Taylor and Robin Houghton. The factory Castrol Toyota Hilux was closely followed by George and Sharon Parkhuizen in an AM Toyota Hilux already showing some battle scars.
Harry Smith-based Cobus van Tonda and Riaan Gulpa were busy putting together another solid performance in the Unifreight Ford Ranger. The car is an ex-factory petrol Ford Ranger, with consistency a van Tonda and Gulpa trademark. Behind the Unifreight pair, the factory crew of Neil Woolridge and Kenny Scholtheimer were also going along steadily in one of the new diesel twin-turbo Ford Rangers. The vehicle was having only its third competitive outing, with Ford the first South African manufacturer to go the diesel route in the ABSA Off-Road Championship.
Pretoria student Christian de Plooy and Henk Janssen van Vuren were also having a steady run in the RFS Toyota Hilux, with a pair in their first season in the Premier SP class. Behind them, track and kart star Leroy Poulter and Rob Howie were going like a rocket in the Ferodo Nissan hardbody and were around 3 minutes faster than the next Class E crew.
A puncture slowed the progress of Hein Lateghan and Chris Birkin in the second Works Castrol Toyota Hilux, and they were pushing hard to make up time. Punctures also hampered progress for Thomas Rundle and Stavros Giannakas in the second of the factory Ford Rangers. They had to stop twice to replace wheels, and that dropped them down the pecking order.
The locals just loved the Toyota 1000 Desert Race, and these enthusiasts used cell phone cameras to catch Duncan Foss and Ralph Pitchford on a charge. The Nissan crew were also hit by a puncture and could not get the wheel off. They were around 6 minutes behind the leaders, and not far behind were Graham Leith and Mike Lawrenson in one of the first factory Ford Rangers now running in Transcore colours.
Championship leaders Cliff and Louis Weichelt led Class D in the N1 4x4 Toyota Hilux D4D and made it to the start with a minute to spare. They blew a turbo during a pre-prologue practice run, and hot on their heels were Pikkie Labuschagne and Rikus Erasmus, who was second in Class E in the 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux. Also in a three-car bunch were Dewald van Breda and Johan de Tooy in the Northern Toyota Hilux D4D.
Class E championship leaders Dion Venter and Ian Palmer were running around 3 minutes behind the sister car of Pikkie Labuschagne and Rikus Erasmus. Venter and Palmer had 2 wins under their belts already, and chasing after them were reigning Class E champions Jannie Visser and Joks Leroux in the RFS Toyota Hilux. A spot of bother at a river crossing cost them valuable seconds.
If at first you don't succeed, try and try again.
Mpumalanga-based brothers Johan and Werner Horn were going along steadily in Class D in the Malalan Toyota Land Cruiser, while a pair of locals were showing no interest whatsoever. Anthony Taylor and Robin Houghton were on a serious charge after losing 20 minutes when a wrong turn deposited them on a pile of rocks, and progress for former Blue Bull scrum half Coetzee Labuschagne and Johan Gerber was a little more sedate.
River crossing always holds the potential for drama and are a favourite with spectators. It's great entertainment for the local youngsters when crews like Johan Steyn and Ronald Smith run into problems.
The Nissan was well and truly bogged down, with Diedrich and Dani Hutting waiting for their turn.
A little outside assistance was called in, but even that didn't help, and Steyn and Smith were eventually time-barred.
Back at race headquarters, it was time for post-mortems.
Yeah, we're not sure about what the position yet. We were really flying, and 38 k's in got a puncture, unfortunately. And I'm not sure how long it takes to change it. The wheel weighs 40 kilos, so you don't get it up the first time. You really need to sit and use all your weight to get the tire up. So we lost quite a bit of time, probably 3.5 minutes or so. But we were fast because we still were able to pull out in front of the guy that was behind us, and he started 2 minutes behind us, you know. So, I mean, we were going well. So we'll see when the times come out.
For pace setters Hannes Grobler and Jean Moore, it was a clean run.
We went well. It was quite tricky, and it was tight and twisty. And some rocks that we've never seen in the desert before. And some hills, climbs, river crossings, a combination of a very good time trial.
A mistake shortly after the start set Neil Woolridge and Kenny Scholtheimer back on their heels. Woolridge was philosophical, but it was a disappointing beginning from which the Ford crew never really recovered.
I don't think we had a fantastic time trial. We had an average time trial. We made a mistake right near the beginning. I wrong slotted and took a minute or so to realize that we'd made a mistake and then get back into the way of things again. So it kind of like threw me off, and then I stalled it going to a very sandy corner and battled to get into reverse, so lost a couple of seconds there. But overall, happy with the car.
The special vehicle category in the ABSA Off-Road Championship boasts some very powerful, very noisy and very high-tech machinery. As with all branches of motor racing, there's ongoing development with fresh ideas and concepts being introduced from race to race. One of those concepts saw former South African champions Evan Hutchinson and Achim Bergman make a dream start to the season in the new Motorite Revo 1 4x4.
Yeah, 3 races, 3 wins in a new car. I mean, we couldn't have expected to have had such a good start, but we're at the desert now, and we've got 3 days of racing ahead of us, so hopefully we can keep that momentum going.
For Zimbabwe rally navigator Philip Archinal, off-road was a new ball game.
We're used to being in sort of 280, 290 horsepower Subarus and Mitsubishi Evos, and we travel Africa doing the championship there. And but coming down here now and joining a Tang with somewhere I'm led to believe around the 550 horsepower, it's going to be really exciting because I know Tang is a competitive driver and he really wants to do well in front of his home people here. Although he's got a little bit of lack of seat time recently, he still is competitive. So I'm looking forward to it. It's brand new to me. I've never done this sport before. It's the first event, so we'll see what happens. Yeah.
In the Regent Racing camp, an air of confidence.
You know, the general feeling is to have a pretty good time trial because of the dust gaps, just procession for Saturday and then try and race Sunday. But the top guys are moving, so I think it's changed. I think you have to have just a steady, fast pace throughout the entire weekend to do well now.
For the Makanete brothers, a strong prologue showing was at the top of the menu.
We need to improve our prologue starting, then we start with the guys whom we're on pace with. You know, then we don't struggle in the first lap passing a lot of slower vehicles. Our target at the beginning of the season was to finish in the top 3, and we're there, so I think we can push the target a little bit up to the top 2.
At the top of the Special Vehicle Championship, a comfortable lead for Evan Hutchinson and Achim Bergman, with not too much to choose between Nick and Ryan Harper and the Whitehouse Carlson combination. There was also a top 5 placing for Class P leaders Johan and Etienne Besaidenote, with another Class P team and a Class B crew also in the top 10.
The start-finish area at the Game City complex in Gaborone has been given a spectator-friendly makeover, with grandstands providing a bird's-eye view and some vantage points. As is the case for the production vehicles, the top 10 seeded crews in the special vehicle category also draw for start positions. Shamir Varayawa and Siegfried Rousseau were first away, followed by reigning SA champs Collie and Quentin Sulwalt. Third on the road were Evan Hutchinson and Achim Bergman, with the pair looking for their 4th win in a row in the 4x4 Revo 1.
The Century Racing pair of Colin Matthews and Alan Smith are fast earning a reputation as prologue specialists. They set a blistering pace in the Century Racing bat, but were chased all the way by former quad racer Jimmy Zahus and Stefan Kutsia in the Mountain Dew Porter, with only 3 seconds separating the 2 cars. The father and son combination of Nick and Ryan Harper in the Atlas Copco bat was 77 seconds behind Matthews and Smith, with Mark Corbett and Rudy Balzar another 14 seconds in arrears in the 4x4 CR1. KwaZulu-Natal flyer Don Thompson, with new co-driver James Watson alongside him in the Zarko, dominated Class B with the pair 5th overall among the special vehicles. Only 3 seconds behind the KZN crew were last year's winners Shamir Varayawa and Siegfried Rousseau, who decided on a measured approach to the prologue. They were followed by reigning SA champions Karl Heinz and Quentin Sulwalt, who won the desert race in 2007, who also opted to forego any early heroics. Second in Class P were brothers David and Gary White in the Ruricon bat. They took a no-nonsense approach to the river crossing that bothered some of the production vehicles and ended up only 18 seconds adrift of class leaders Thompson and Watson. Next up were brothers-in-law Mike Whitehouse and Matthew Carlson in the Regent Racing bat. Whitehouse used to co-drive alongside former SA champion Terence Marsh, who now campaigns in the production vehicle category. Whitehouse is now in his second season as a driver, with the car in camera giving an early indication of high levels of mud and water on what was meant to be a desert race.
Early altercation with a tree got Herman and Richard Silwart's prologue off to an uncertain start, but they recovered to claim a spot in the top 10 in the Silwart Racing Zarko. The Silwarts edged out Limpopo crew Naeem Mosaji and Mohammed Molson in the Tyre Rack Jimco, who put on a spectacular show for some appreciative young fans.
It was a difficult day for championship leaders Evan Hutchinson and Achim Bergman in the Motorite Revo 1. A series of mishaps which included no odometer conspired to drop them to 12th place among the special vehicles. And at the end of the prologue, Hutchinson was not a happy soldier. Despite that, the race cam in the Motorite car provided for some spectacular footage of what off-road racing is all about.
There was another good run for rookies Johan van Staden and James Rousseau and the KEC back in Class P. They were closely followed by a bunch of cars that included KwaZulu-Natal pair Glenn Gibson and Gary Campbell in a brand new Gibson Racing Jimco. Local hero Atang Makakhanene and Philip Archinal in a Porter and Class B pace setters, Derek Tutu and Ian Pina all the way from Cape Town in the Orange Tree Bat.
A motor race in his backyard did not disturb this fellow's dinner, with more entertainment for enthusiastic locals coming from brothers Keith and Andrew Makanete, and Class B rivals John Telford and Stuart van Graan, who were running within seconds of each other.
Then there was a blast from the past with Paris-Dakar quad hero Vickers van Deventer and Michiel Leroux giving the ex-Jojo Tanks VW Beetle 4x4 a rare national championship outing. Powered by a Volvo engine, the Beetle was a huge crowd puller in its day, but the river crossing provided van Deventer and Leroux with a few anxious moments.
The Beetle needed a second go at the crossing. And this time, they just make it.
Vehicle and asset finance from ABSA, going the extra mile to get you finance.
McLaren, Renault, Ferrari. What are you looking for in Germany? Formula One. On the edge. Exclusively live on Supersport. Brought to you by Tidal Wheel and Tire.
Vehicle and asset finance from ABSA, going off the beaten track to find solutions.
Back at the Game City race headquarters, it was again time for post-mortems, with Quinton Silwart happy with his day at the office.
We had a good time trial. We didn't take it too... we didn't push too hard in the start, you know. We slowly worked our way into a good rhythm, and I think it's important not to take too many chances so early on in such a long race. So, yeah, the strategy worked out nicely for us, and we had a clean run, which was nice for a change.
Apart from a few niggles, Nick Harper was also a satisfied customer.
Time trial was good. It's my kind of racing. It suited our car. I just didn't like the stops where we had to drive at 60 k's an hour and stop and go. There was like 3 of them in there, so it just disrupted the flow. But other than that, we had a good time trial.
There were also no complaints from prologue winner Colin Matthews.
We drove as fast and as hard as we possibly could. That's what it takes to win a prologue these days. My navigator did a great job. The route was tight. It had some really open fast sections where we had a really close call. But tomorrow's going to be great fun because we've got a minute and a half gap over the second car. And it's going to have lots of fun. We've got 230 k's to DSP, another 230 k's to the end of the race tomorrow. So there's definitely a big race on.
The off-road community do not miss out on sunrises, and crowd favourite Hannes Grobler was in early demand.
Hello, Hannes, how's it?
On yourself, man.
I'm good, how are you?
That's very good.
There was plenty of early activity as teams readied themselves for what promised to be a tough day. There was no shortage of pre-race optimism, and while local hero Atang Makakhanene carried the hopes of a nation on his shoulders, he was adamant there was no pressure.
There's actually no pressure. I'm actually quite confident and comfortable with all the people around me and the support that I'm getting back at home. And I won the race, yes, in the past. But so far, we're learning the car. It's a new car, it's a new navigator, everything I'm not used to. And I'm also trying to get my mind back on the track. So there's a lot to be put together in terms of having a proper package. But since the trials yesterday, the car seemed to have overheated a little bit, but I think it's okay. We had a bit of bubble in the water cooling system. So should all hold today and we make it to the end, we'll make up a couple of places.
The Toyota Botswana Kalahari Desert Race is the biggest sporting event in Botswana.
Absolutely important. It's one of our icons in our calendar. For tourism, one, it brings all roads lead to Gaborone, Botswana, and that is fantastic for my hotels in Gaborone. From the point of view of Botswana in particular, exposure to the international community about our capacity to do what we can. Thirdly, for the general communities that the race goes through, the communities benefit from the people that are aligned along the track.
The Botswana Tourism Board also plays a major role in staging the Toyota 1000 Desert Race. The board hosts VIP guests from Botswana and South Africa, and excitement started to grow as the start approached. Colin Matthews and Alan Smith blasted off the line, with Jimmy Zaas and Stefan Kutsia in hot pursuit, and hostilities had commenced.
Next to join the fray was the Atlas Copco Bat of Nick and Ryan Harper, and with the prologue dominated by special vehicles, the first 11 cars to be flagged away would all be specials. ABSA off-road races are run on what is termed real time, with cars leaving the start according to their prologue times. The Harpers had a 14-second start on Mark Corbett and Rudy Balzar in the CR1, with the RFS Toyota Hilux of Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst and the Donaldson Nissan Navara of Hannes Grobler and Joan Moore in the first production vehicles to come under starters' orders. They were followed by Evan Hutchinson and Achim Bergman, and it took only 200 meters or so to whip the crowd into a frenzy.
Dakar rally heroes Ivar Tollefson and Quinn Evans were given a warm send-off in one of 3 factory Donaldson Nissan Navaras, and there was a huge cheer when Atang Makakhanene and Philip Archinall took off alongside the Unifreight Ford Ranger of Kobus van Tonda and Rian Guapa.
Spectators were 2 and 3 deep along sections of the route, with the 2 Century Racing entries in the hands of Colin Matthews and Alan Smith, and Mark Corbett and Rudy Balzar setting the early pace. Corbett is a former Desert Race winner, but there were question marks over the reliability of the CR1. A little further back, Evan Hutchinson and Achim Bergman had caught Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst in the RFS Toyota Hilux. Passing was a risky proposition, unless there was cooperation from the crew in front.
Similar little duels were starting to develop throughout the field, and with conditions favouring the special vehicles, the experienced Visser and Badenhorst took the first available opportunity to politely move aside and let Hutchison and Bergman go past.
Conditions were often akin to driving through a tunnel of thorn bushes, and there were ominous signs of an inordinate amount of water and mud along the route.
Jimmy Zaas and Stefan Kutsia had lost early ground in the Mountain Dew Porter and were being closed down by Nick and Ryan Harper in the Atlas Copco Bat. They had Hannes Grobler and Joan Moore hot on their heels, with the Nissan crew quickly making up a couple of places. They'd moved ahead of Shamir Variawa and Siegfried Rousseau, and Herman and Wichard Silvart in the Silvart Racing Zarko. One Silvart car was being chased by another Silvart car, and right on their heels were Naheem Mosaji and Mohammed Molson in the Tyre Rack Jimco. It was hectic stuff, but there was trouble ahead.
There were stretches of mud and water unheard of on the Toyota 1000 Desert Race, and among the early victims of one such mud hole were Mike Whitehouse and Matthew Carlson in the Regent Racing Bat. While they floundered, Hannes Skrobler and Juan Moore streamed past to pick up another place.
When Don Thompson and James Watson put in an appearance, the scene was set for a little tragi-comedy, with the enthusiastic crowd getting more than their money's worth. Backing up to take a run at the mud hole, Thompson reversed into the Ruricon Bat of David and Gary White.
The response from the Whites was to back up and drive around the Zargo and plough through the mud while the KwaZulu-Natal crew were left to rue some extensive exhaust damage.
Can't stick the jack and then you can leave it out.
Well, you need a rearview mirror.
That's all mud on there.
Icho and Jaap de Bruin were making good progress in the Micron Excel Toyota Hilux, but for the crowd at the mud hole, some more entertainment was on its way. The Whitehouse Carlson car was still stranded, and George and Sharon Barkhuizen were the next victims.
The Besaidnotes were busy floundering when the Castrol Toyota Hilux of Hein Latergan and Chris Birkin and the KEC Bat of Johan van Staden and James Rousseau arrived on the scene, and in a huge spray of mud and water took the direct route.
With help from a little contact with a stricken Toyota, the Bat ploughed its way to safety.
After starting 28th on the road and 13th in the production vehicle category, Duncan Foss and Rolf Pitchford arrived at the river crossing to find the direct route blocked by a stranded Atlas Copco Toyota of Gary Berthold and Dani Stassen. A little improvisation was needed, and the pair set off downriver in search of an escape route.
Little mountaineering saw the Donaldson Nissan Navara crew safely out of the riverbed, with finding a way back to the route proper the next exercise. Overseas commitment saw Pitchford miss the 07 and 08 races, and when it was confirmed he would be available for this year's race, Foss heaved a huge sigh of relief and thanks.
Safely back on the route, Foss and Pitchford went past the RFS Toyota Hilux of Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst, who were temporarily hors de combat after solid contact with a tree.
There were sections of the route that were in keeping with conditions you would expect on a desert race, and Kobus van Tonde and Rian Guapa were making steady progress in the Unifreight Ford Ranger. Van Tonde and Guapa started 25 seconds ahead of the factory Ford Ranger of Neil Woolridge and Kenny Scholthammer, who were not about to try any early race heroics in a vehicle still very much in the development stage.
Up at the now infamous mud hole, help was at hand for Mike Whitehouse and Matthew Carlson.
Whitehouse and Carlson were towed to safety, but within seconds their place in the mud had been taken over by Thomas Rundle and Stavros Ionakos, who drove straight into trouble in the diesel twin-turbo Ford Ranger.
Next up were Class E frontrunners Picky Labuskaghni and Rikus Erasmus, who looked as though they would join Rundle and Ionakos.
Played havoc with clutches and, of course, engines, but they managed to back up in the 4x4 Megaworld Toyota Hilux, and a slightly different tack the second time round saw them, much to the delight of the crowd, safely on their way.
Back on dry land, Herman and Vichal Zurwald were back on song after losing 40 minutes through a loose coil wire and a brake problem. They were staying ahead of Graham Leith and Mike Lawrenson, who were having a steady run in the Transcore Ford Ranger. But Hicho and Jaap de Bruin had come to a halt.
The stop axle broke in front. You see in there. So we're trying to fix it.
A puncture ruined the prologue for Class B champions Johan and Etienne Besaidnout in the Adenko Bat. They were going well, and despite an electrical problem, were starting to pick up places.
Back at our mud hole, the unfortunate Thomas Rundle and Stavros Ioannakos were sinking deeper and deeper into the mire. Attempts to haul them out of their predicament were not meeting with much success. And to rub salt into their wound, a string of cars led by the back-in-action Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst ploughed their way through the obstacle without any undue problems.
Next up were Terence Marsh and Peter Groenewald in the Regent Racing Nissan Navara.
Class E championship leaders Dion Venter and Ian Palmer had a long look at the situation and then sailed through it safely.
Venter and Palmer were followed by Class D leaders Dewald van Breda and Johan de Tooy in the Northam Toyota Hilux D4D and Class E champions Jannie Visser and Joks Leroux in the RFS Toyota Hilux.
The mudhole continued to provide entertainment, with Warwick Goossing hamming it up for the crowd after a quick inspection of the dangers ahead. While reinforcements were being called up to help Rundle and Ioannakos, the resourceful Louw de Bruin and Rian Greyling took a detour around the mudhole in the Rurikon Ford Ranger. They were followed by Ernest Corbett and Warwick Goossing in the futuristic-looking Century Racing CR2, with the Rundle Ioannakos Ford still going nowhere.
There was now a change in tactics to try and put an end to the Rundle Ioannakos problem. The Ford crew had lost mountains of time, and their sense of humour and even the spectators were starting to lose interest. In dustier circumstances, Castrol Toyota crew Anthony Taylor and Robin Houghton were on a charge after losing 40 minutes stuck in 2 mud holes.
Vehicle and asset finance from ABSA, overcoming all obstacles. Vehicle and asset finance from ABSA, going the extra mile to get you financed.
The Donaldson Nissans of Hannes Grobler, Jean Moore and Ivar Tollefson, Quinn Evans were running at the front of the production car field when they both hit the same rock. The Grobler-Moore car was cannibalized to keep Tollefson and Evans going, but they had lost mountains of time. Evan Hutchinson and Achim Bergman had come through the field to take over the lead in the special vehicle category and had built up a lead over 2.5 minutes on last year's winners Shamir Variawa and Siegfried Rousseau in the total porter.
Naim Moussaji and Mohammed Molson were going along steadily in the Tyrac Jimco, and problems for the Nissan saw Hein Latergan and Chris Birkin into the lead in the Castrol Toyota Hilux. They were also to run into problems, and a broken suspension put paid to their race before the designated service point. Behind the Toyota, the 2007 winners Cully and Quinton Silwalt were going along steadily in the Silwalt Racing Bat, but were over 5 minutes behind the lead special vehicle.
The story of the morning was the charge by Duncan Foss and Rolf Pitchford in the third Donaldson Nissan Navara. From 28th on the road, they'd scythed their way through the field, and the demise of Latergan Birkin Toyota took them into the lead in the production vehicle category.
Foss and Pitchford to be in the lead so early in the race was an unlikely scenario at the start, with the pair already holding a handy 10-minute cushion at the front of the production car field.
Behind Foss and Pitchford, the Mountain Dew porter of Jimmy Zahus and Stefan Kutsia was running strongly. They were being chased by the AIM Toyota Hilux of George and Sharon Barkhuizen, who were also destined to drop out before the DSP with a broken gearbox. A terrific fight had developed in Class P, with David and Gary White in the Rurikon Bat only seconds ahead of National Series rookies Johan van Staden and James Rousseau in the KEC Bat.
Mark Corbett and Rudy Balzar were putting together a solid race before reliability problems again sidelined the Century Racing CR1 4x4 before the designated service point. Right behind them were Comrades Marathon veteran Nick Harper and son Ryan, who lost time with a puncture. They battled to jack up the Atlas Copco bat in soft sand and were being chased by avid toy car collector Kobus van Tonde and Rian Guapa, who were having a great run in the Unifreight Ford Ranger.
Also steadily making up ground were Mike Whitehouse and Matthew Carlson, who lost about 20 minutes in the mud hole that was later to claim Thomas Rundle and Stavros Ioannakos. The Regent Racing pair had made a solid start to the season, with their successes built around consistency rather than out-and-out speed. Behind Whitehouse and Carlson, the Besaidnout brothers were having a stop-start race. An electrical problem saw the Adenko bat periodically cut out on them. Things were going a lot more smoothly for Pikkie Labuskaghni and Rikus Erasmus, who were busy building up a handsome Class E lead in the 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux.
With championship leaders Cliff and Louis Weichelt failing to start the race, 2008 Rookies of the Year Debot van Breda and Johan de Toy were setting the pace in Class D in the Northam Toyota Hilux. Also going along steadily were Neil Woolridge and Kenny Schulthammer, but it was not a happy day for the Factory Ford team, with both Woolridge, Schulthammer and Rundle and Ioannakis failing to see out the day.
Still pushing hard in the much-modified RFS Toyota Hilux were Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst. The battle scars were courtesy of a contact with a tree early in the race. Behind Visser Badenhorst, the sister RFS Hilux in the hands of Christian Duploy and Henk Janssen van Vieren was also going well after being pulled out of the mud hole by their teammates. Also going well and in complete charge of Class B were Cape crew Derek de Toy and Ian Pienaar in the Orange Tree bat. With the intercom not working, the crew were relying on hand signals, but that did not appear to be a problem.
With a police helicopter hovering overhead, the Castor Toyota Hilux factory crew of Anthony Taylor and Robin Houghton was still on a charge after their mud-hole encounters and were going like the clappers.
First into the designated service point were Evan Hutchinson and Achim Bergman.
How's your morning been?
Yeah, okay, busy overtaking, and then, I don't know, I think we're leading, eh? So, no, it's all good.
How's the car?
We don't have clutch, so we're trying to get that sorted out, but apart from that, it's all going well, eh?
Second on the road was Shamir Variawa and Siegfried Rousseau.
This morning has been, quite adventurous. I think being the first, second, third car on the road, there's no tracks. You got to basically cut through the bush or however it is. And we've been battling. We've been battling with a brake problem the whole race. So we don't know. We'll see how it goes. But it's tough.
Duncan Foss and Rolf Pitchford moved from 13th to 1st in the production vehicle category.
Really good so far. The car's been great. Ralphie's been great. We've had a good run. We haven't had any problems.
Overtaking a problem?
No, the wind's picked up and the other competitors have been great, so all the conditions are actually suiting us at the moment.
Kobus van Tonde and Rian Guapa were first of the Ford entries, but had lost touch with their service crew.
First section very tight again, but after 100 k's it opened up nicely, so we really enjoyed that. I don't know, we've lost our crew. I don't know if they've got lost or what, but luckily we've got other people helping us here, so the crew from George giving us fuel here.
For Class P leaders, David and Gary White in the Ruhr Combat, it had been plain sailing.
Yeah, it was a very lucky time, enjoyed the route, everything went well. A few hiccups from other competitors, but besides that, very nice. Enjoyed it very much.
Off-road racing can be an adventurous pastime. For confirmation, all you had to do was speak to Jaapie Badenhorst.
Got stuck twice, and then in one mud section we hit a tree and damaged all the front end of the bucky. But yeah, apart from that, it's we're going well. Okay, I think we just almost ran out of fuel the last 100 or so meters, but fortunately we are.
Class E leader Pikkie Labuskaghni didn't beat around the bush.
Tough day in office, but very technical and a lot of fun.
Car going okay?
Yes, very fine.
Easy to overtake, difficult to overtake?
We didn't need to overtake a lot. A lot of the guys got stuck, and then we got past. But the one guy that we had to pass, he gave way easily.
So you're enjoying yourselves?
Very much.
Class B leader Derek de Toy had a familiar tale.
We got stuck a bit. We lost about 5 minutes, maybe a bit more. But we're really enjoying it. We're just battling a little bit. We don't have brakes on the front especially. Our cut brake doesn't work. And our intercom is now just about failed. So it's a lot of sun, but it's really, really nice.
For Class D leaders, Dewald van Breda and Johan de Toy, there were late problems.
Dewald, how's your morning been?
No, it was very nice till about 20 k's from here. So we lost the clutch. So we'll see if we can fix it quickly.
Otherwise, route good?
Very nice, very nice. No dust, it's beautiful. It's a bit muddy, but otherwise okay.
Following the retirement of Hein Latergan and Chris Birkin, Castrol Toyota hopes now lay firmly with Anthony Taylor and Robin Houghton.
Twice we got stuck in mud. It's actually quite bad out there. A lot of the other SP buckies as well were stuck, some specials. Also Class D and E cars, so yeah, it was quite difficult, but yeah, at least we made it here, and we're just going to carry on. You know, we've got another day tomorrow as well, and let's try see what we can do.
Botswana hopes of a local hero win were still alive with the Tang Makgekgenene running solidly.
We got stuck at a river, for about, I don't know how long. That's where we lost most of our time this morning. And otherwise, we're going fine.
It had also been an adventurous morning for Ivar Tollefson and Quinn Evans.
It's lively, that's for sure. It's quite a technical, very rough track, and we fell foul of one of the bigger rocks on the course, so we did a bit of damage and had to stop and repair.
At the DSP, an incredible performance had taken Duncan Foss and Rolf Pitchford into a 12-minute lead in the production vehicle category. A great performance also saw Class E leaders Pikkie Labuschagne and Rikus Erasmus in the top 5, while in the special vehicle category, a great battle was brewing with only 90 seconds separating Evan Hutchinson, Achim Bergman, and Shamir Variawa and Siegfried Rousseau.
Vehicle and asset finance from Absa. Going off the beaten track to finance from Absa. Overcoming all obstacles.
With last year's race winners Samir Variawa and Siegfried Rousseau hot on their heels, special vehicle leaders Evan Hutchison and Achim Bergman had a race on their hands. With teamwork an essential ingredient for success in off-road racing, no event places bigger demands on co-drivers than the Toyota 1000 Desert Race. Finding and staying on the route is a tricky task in the Botswana terrain, and being first on the road makes it even more difficult. It also demonstrates that off-road racing is not all about blasting through the bush at high speed.
Behind Hutchinson and Bergman, the Donaldson-Nissan pair of Duncan Foss and Rolf Pitchford continued their unbelievable progress through the field. Next on their list were Shamir Variawa and Siegfried Rousseau, with the Nissan pair having little trouble in getting past the total porter. From 28th on the road at the start, Foss and Pitchford were now second and closing in on Hutchinson and Bergman. Foss won the Toyota 1000 Desert Race in 2007 with veteran Richard Leek and in 2008 with Louis Weichel, but is never happier than when Pitchford is in the car with him. Second place on this year's Dakar Rally cemented Pitchford's status as one of the top co-drivers in the world, and he and Foss form a great team.
Wherever you looked, even in thick bush, you were bound to find pockets of spectators, and they were getting their money's worth from teams like Surprise Package, Jimmy Zaas and Stefan Kutsia, who were putting up a great show in the ex-Gary Berthold Mountain Dew Porter. After a disappointing start to the year, reigning South African champions and 2007 winners Cully and Quinton Sulwalt were having their best run of the season in the Sulwalt Racing Bat. Behind the Sulwalts, the steady Nick and Ryan Harper had worked their way back into contention in the Atlas Copco Bat and were looking in good shape.
The police helicopter was kept busy patrolling crowded public roads, but traffic was a lot lighter on the race route. Mike Whitehouse and Matthew Carlson continued to make good progress after their early mud hole trials and tribulations. While in conditions more like a desert race, Naeem Musaji and Mohammed Mulston had quietly worked their way up the pecking order in the tyre rack Jimco. Behind the Limpopo crew, Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst were also making good progress with the RFS Toyota Hilux sounding good, despite the Bucky's battered appearance.
A glass of wine and a snack. Now that's the way to watch motorsport deep in the African bush. There were no such niceties for crews, and a bad day for Ford was about to get worse, with a brave effort from Kobus van Tonde and Rian Gwapa about to come to an end. The Unifreight Ford was being chased by David and Gary White in the Rurikon Bat, but would retire before the overnight haul. The White brothers were firmly in control of Class P and were having by far their best outing of the season. Also having their best run of the year were Chris de Plooy and Henk Janssen van Vuren, with a missing body panel on the RFS Toyota Hilux, the result of a mud-hole confrontation with a special vehicle crew. It was a good performance from the Toyota team, but they were being hunted down by the factory Castrol Toyota of Anthony Taylor and Robin Houghton, who started their day 58th on the road.
For Class D and E cars, it was tough going, with National Championship rookies Pikkie Labuschagne and Rikus Erasmus doing a sterling job at the front of Class E in the 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux. Derek Dutoy and Ian Pienaar were also finding it hard going in the Orange Tree Bat, with Class B cars restricted to normally aspirated 2-litre engines that must be sourced from a production car or commercial vehicle in South Africa. Struggling along behind the Orange Tree car were brothers Johan and Etienne Besadenhuis, with the Adenko Bat not sounding at all well.
The big 7-litre Chevy motor that pushes along the Mountain Dew Porter was sounding just fine. And after their river crossing woes, Gary Berthold and Danny Stassen were back in action in another slightly modified Toyota Hilux.
While young fans showed their support for Tang Magernene, the Donaldson Nissan of Ivar Tolfsen and Quinn Evans, with a few bits and pieces from the Grobler Moore car, was running strongly.
A feature of the spectators along the route was the number of youngsters bunking school, but there were also one or two old-timers taking it easy, while Glenn and Rob Gibson were battling along in the Gibson Racing Bat at the back of the Class P field. It was turning into a long day for the Gibson father and son pairing, and Class E championship leaders Dion Venter and Ian Palmer were in the same boat in the second 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux. The Class E buckies are restricted to 4-cylinder 3-litre motors, and reigning champions Yanni Visser and Yorks Leroux had also had a tough day in the office in the RFS Toyota Hilux.
Camping is a nice and restful way of watching your motorsport. With the back markers still out on the route, life was far from restful, with off-road racing again calling for great dollops of perseverance from tired crews. Hicho and Jaap de Bruin had repaired their broken stub axle and were working their way up the field. For Graham Leith and Mike Lawrenson in the Transcore Ford Ranger, this was their first desert race, and it was proving to be a baptism of fire.
It had also been tough going for Heini Strumpfer and Hendrik van der Linde in the Micra Excel Toyota Hilux, running at the back of Class D, and former South African champion Terence Marsh and Peter Groenewald were soldiering along in the Regent Racing Nissan Navara, with their progress monitored by a family of Toyota supporters.
We live in Gibbs, and every time there's a race we come out, and we are a Toyota supporter.
At the flying finish at the end of day one, the first car home was the Donaldson Nissan Navara of Duncan Foss and Rolf Pitchford. They were just over a minute ahead of the special vehicle leaders Evan Hutchinson and Achim Bergman in the Motorite Revo 1.
Look, we've got to keep our heads, keep it together, see where our position is, and sort of drive accordingly, not do anything too crazy. It's a big race, this one. We really want to win it, so we must just keep our cool for tomorrow.
Hutchison and Bergman had also worked their way through the field and were still fighting a clutch problem.
Yeah, we are happy. We had a dismal time trial. But we pushed really hard this morning and managed to get past quite a few guys. I think we made it into the lead by the time we got to halfway. Top loop's been quite tough. We're battling without a clutch. We haven't got a clutch pedal in. We've got drive, but we don't have a clutch pedal, so we're losing a lot of time on the switchbacks. We have to turn off, and we're battling a little bit. But the guys are close behind us, and go home and rest and try and get ready for tomorrow.
Third was Zahus and Stefan Kutsia.
I'm extremely happy. We didn't expect this. Even the prologue, we didn't expect to do so well in the prologue. And today we were going to just take it easy, but near the end, we had a bit of problems during the day, so we lost a lot of time. So on the second loop, we thought we'd push it a bit and make up some of the time that was lost.
It had also been a good day for Christian de Plooy.
The prologue was brilliant yesterday, but early morning we got some power steering problems, but it sorted itself out and we got a flat tire. But other than that, a clean run, just a rough race out there.
A strong finish from Taylor and Houghton, who started the day 58th on the road.
Yeah, no, it feels like I've just won the Dakar probably, you know, but yeah, we've still got a long day tomorrow. The only pity is that we got stuck this morning for half an hour in the mud, and you know, if it wasn't for that, I think we could have probably given Duncan a run for his money tomorrow. I'm still going to give it hell. Let's see what happens. Maybe he still has trouble tomorrow, and we can still perhaps pull off a win. That's what I'm hoping for. We really, really, really need it.
For Ivar Tollefsen and Quinn Evans, it had been a day full of incidents.
We started very well, so I was very happy. I think it's one of our best starts ever. And it was really nice to race and fight like we did. But then Hannes passed us. We were actually leading the race, which we'd never done before, so that was nice too. Not for so many minutes, but then Hannes passed us again. He hit a rock. I mean, it's bigger than the stomach of Hannes. And a huge rock, he hit it. And he hit it into the road. Hannes went nicely out of the car, trying to stop us, but I misunderstood his waving, so I thought something was wrong, so I looked at Hannes and I hit the same rock. And then we struggled 1 hour nearly with the wishbone. Lot of work. We did everything the wrong way.
After a marvellous performance, a comfortable special vehicle lead of over half an hour for Duncan Foss and Rolf Pitchford in the Donaldson Nissan Navara. Good performances too from 3 Class E crews in the top 10 overnight. In the special vehicle category, only a minute separated the first 3 cars, with a great Day 2 battle on the cards.
Be sure to join us here on Supersport on Sunday the 12th of July for Day 2 of the Toyota 1000 Desert Race in Botswana.
That was the ultimate test, the ABSA Off-Road Championship. Now fast-track yourself with vehicle and asset finance from ABSA. Today,